Hello and welcome to the Mythophiles podcast, where we cover the greatest stories ever told and the others as well. I'm Duncan Gale,
I'm Cody Decker.
and today we are going to be talking about Wakanda Forever, the latest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, this movie has just come out in November of this year of 2022, and this movie is directed once again by the great Ryan Coogler. And coming back for this movie, we have Letitia Wright as Shuri. We have Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia. We have Danai Gurira as Okoye. We have Angela Bassett coming back as the Queen, and Winston Duke as M'Baku. So these are all characters that were in the first Black Panther movie, but we've also got a couple of newcomers in this movie. We've got Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams or Ironheart, and perhaps most significantly for the real hardcore Marvel fans like myself, we finally have Namor the Submariner, who in this movie is played by Tenoch Huerta Mejia, or Mejia. So yeah, that's just sort of the main cast we've got for this movie. So yeah, I guess we go with our initial observations here now.
Yeah, probably like this seems like the one movie they for sure wanted to happen.
Yeah.
Like watching the others, I'm sort of like, I don't know if that this was like this felt like they wanted to make this. I don't
Right.
think this is the story they wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting movie because, yeah. So of course, this is a sequel to Black Panther, and of course, the big thing here is that we have no Black Panther, right? Or we don't have Chadwick Boseman. He of course passed away 2 years ago, sadly. And I actually remember when I heard about him passing away, and I think within 10 to 15 minutes, I think I actually said to my girlfriend, "They will be doing the Black Panther sequel. Shuri is going to be the next Black Panther." So I am on record as having called this. I think that was the most logical thing for Marvel to have done, and they actually did it here. And I mean, there's a couple of different ways they could have gone with this. I mean, they could have tried to recast T'Challa, Black Panther, but I think that would have been difficult. So I think it's good that they circumvented that, but instead we have a Black Panther sequel without Black Panther in it, which is an interesting situation. I'm not sure anything quite like this has ever happened.
Which is why I think like because you called it Wakanda Forever, you didn't even call it Black Panther
Right,
because I think like if you call it like Wakanda Forever makes more sense as
right.
a title than Black Panther 2
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
more
So
even
yeah,
though we still only see that one street in Wakanda because they never really explore that city or anything. It is a story
right,
about Wakanda, and then they're like, "Man, it sucks that we don't have a Black Panther."
right. Yeah, so the official title for this movie is Black Panther colon Wakanda Forever. But yeah, there is something about it that it feels a little weird to actually call it that to me. But yeah,
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 especially which when we get into the more detailed, I have how the story ended. I was kind of like, "Oh, that's so you can still call it that." Okay. Um,
right, right,
the villain usually in the Marvel movies I do like the villain is always the highlight, and
right.
this is the same thing. The
Yeah,
fact I was
yeah.
really
So
impressed with how Namor like was depicted and looked, and how I was like, oh, that guy looks cool.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the villain of this movie, or maybe more accurately, you could just call him the antagonist of this movie. Yeah, Namor. Yeah. So again, for for real hardcore Marvel heads like myself, I mean, this is a big deal. Finally getting Namor portrayed on screen. Yeah.
When
Go
I
ahead.
was watching it, I'm like, there. If you're a Namor fan, you must be so excited for this. And I'm like,
Right.
and I'm sure they're out there somewhere. But this
Right.
is now we've dipped into me being like, I have no idea who this guy really is. And I'm watching like it looks like they're
Essentially.
doing him a lot of justice. And I'm
Hmm.
happy for those fans, but like that's I've now like
Hmm.
kind of stepped out of like having any like opinion on that character.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I'm not so much a fan of Namor specifically, but being a fan of the sort of Marvel comics and Marvel universe, I mean, he is incredibly important, I think, to the overall Marvel universe. And I think it's kind of insane that it's almost now late in 2022 that, I mean, this is the first time that Namor has gotten a live action portrayal in a movie. And there's a couple of interesting reasons for that, I think. I mean, I think one reason is that, yeah, this character, yeah, I don't know the details of this, but I think the rights to this character are sort of entangled up with the rights to the Fantastic Four, which have only sort of recently been released to yeah, the Disney Marvel, and so, I mean, of course there have been a number of Fantastic Four movies that were made in the past. Um,
And it's all
many
doctored
of
in.
yeah, many of them quite unfortunate. Yeah, and they've all had Doctor Doom as the villain, or in one case, yeah, with Silver Surfer in there. So yeah, the Fantastic Four universe as it is has not been developed enough in movies to really get Namor in there. So he was not in there. I think another problem that this movie is dealing with is the fact that this is the one time that DC has actually beaten Marvel to the punch with something. DC has Aquaman, and of course Jason Momoa. Yeah, everybody loves him. Everybody loves his portrayal of Aquaman, and so I think that has been so popular that Marvel has had to sort of alter a little bit how
That
they portray Namor so that they're not sort of stepping on the toes of DC with that.
it's
Uh-huh.
funny to say because Marvel had such a long window where Aquaman was just a joke,
Right.
and they
Exactly.
just missed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Like it,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
because in this
Yeah.
one, I guess they can talk to
Weird.
fish too, but they don't really talk about or address that fact that much because like we
Right.
can't
Right. Right.
really. It is just like, oh yeah, we can do that, but I'm like maybe they're trained
Hmm.
or they just domesticated them or something, but it's like if they did it like 10 years ago,
Hmm.
Aquaman was I think Aquaman was a joke until Jason Momoa. Like they
Yeah.
would
I
they would
think.
try in the comic books to make him like edgy, and he's like, oh, he has a hook for a hand now, and now he's
Right.
like a tough guy.
Hmm. Yeah. I seem to remember. Yeah. Back when DC did the New 52, or yeah, I'm sorry. Was it the New 52, or was it just like the new like DC sort of like rebooted their entire line back in
The
like
they
2011
they
or
reboot
something.
like every 4 years. I think the New 52
Well, yeah,
honestly
yeah,
was
yeah. I
like
mean, now
three.
it's become commonplace. But yeah, I think and when they did the reboot of Aquaman, they did sort of lean into the fact that he's sort of a joke character, and like, yeah. Um, so yeah, I think they did start to kind of embrace that a little bit more, and that may have helped with the way that the character developed when Jason Momoa started playing him. But yeah.
That does make sense because it's like because everyone's like, what do you mean he just talks to fish? It's like, well, he can do other stuff too, but no one knows that. And then they kept
Right.
trying to fight against that reputation, and it just made him seem goofier. And then
Hmm.
when they started just being like, yeah, he's a little goofy, it was like, oh, okay, like
Right.
there was nothing to make fun of anymore.
Right. Right. Right.
Because now it's like, yeah, he's aware of that. He's like, yeah, it is weird. And they go, oh,
Hmm.
and now he's
Hmm.
like, he still like fights people, and like that is pretty cool.
Right. Right.
And the
Yeah.
Submariner
Yeah.
is like that's like it's like he has wings on his ankles, and I'm like that's like
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, they're gonna give him like tattoos on his ankles? Are they going to do that? Are they going to try to avoid?
Right.
They like no, they're wait. Not only does he have wings, they work,
Oh yeah.
and it
Oh yeah.
and like he like it's like air roller skates. I don't know what the word like air jets. I'm like it actually looks cool when he moves around and stuff. I was really impressed by that.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely, definitely. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess yeah. Before we get into the movie itself, yeah. I mean, I'll just sort of uh, do a little bit more of my Marvel history lesson, which just I mean, Namor is important because yeah, I mean, he is very much a sort of part of the Fantastic Four family of characters. I mean, he's never really actually been a member of the Fantastic Four, but he's been sort of he was an early villain of theirs, and then he also had there was this sort of forbidden love between him and the Invisible Woman, and that was a big sort of plot element. And then he became more of a sort of ally. Yeah, and it's interesting because I mean, in a way, it makes sense for him to be in a Black Panther movie because Black Panther is actually a Fantastic Four sort of
Oh, I
supporting character. He was originally yeah introduced in Fantastic Four. I mean, yeah, I mean the early Fantastic Four they did a lot of stuff where they would meet the kings and the monarchs of other places. So I mean, there
oh
was
yeah, because they
yeah
went. They're like, oh, we found this country called Wakanda. We found this country
right
where Namor is. I don't know the name of
yeah
their
yeah yeah.
place, and
So
we
yeah
we
yeah
found where Doctor Doom lives, and
that's
then
right.
oh, there's a guy eating planets,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So they met Doctor Doom in Latveria. They met Black Panther in Wakanda, Namor in Atlantis. And
so there's
here
a
he's not the king of Atlantis. That's because they have to change it. But and they
in
also
the Marvel
met
just in the Marvel world, there is a subset of the Fantastic Four universe
right.
where all of their characters are getting like stories before the Fantastic Four are now.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think once the Fantastic Four movie comes out, and it is slated to come out, I think in within the next 2 or 3 years, I think the most logical thing for them to do is for them to just have it be like, oh yeah, yeah, the Fantastic Four has just always been here, and you know they just it just so happens they haven't actually interacted with anybody or maybe even just like we haven't actually seen them interact with anybody but they've actually always been here like they were in the background of the Infinity War, whatever.
My big theory for how they were gonna do it was at Endgame they were gonna be like, we need to undo the snap, and then
Mm-hmm.
they do it. And the spoilers for Endgame. And then
Yeah,
they're like, oh, and then they do a snap, like, that could have unforeseen consequences on reality.
right.
And they're like, how could it affect it? And it would just cut to Reed Richards being just standing there like, I guess we'll never know. And then
Right.
it's just that was my big like, that's how they're gonna
That'd be
do it.
great. Yeah.
Is it's yeah, and then they just be like, yeah, we're all here. And it's like, oh, it merged like universes and stuff.
Right, right. Hmm. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, obviously, yeah. Namor is affiliated with the Fantastic Four, but Namor has also been a member of the Avengers in the comics, so he's affiliated with the Avengers that way.
Is that a
And
newer is
Namor, what's that?
that a newer thing, or is that like an older storyline?
Oh no, no, no. Yeah, I mean, Namor's been part of the Avengers going back to like the 80s and earlier, and yeah, yeah. I mean, not always a consistent member, but he's
Hmm.
been in there. And Namor has even been a member of the X-Men as well, because Namor is technically a mutant, and that's actually a big sort of that's a big sort of inside moment in this movie that he actually refers to himself as a mutant, and that's almost like,
Oh, I missed
uh,
that part.
yeah, 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 and I think that is like because there was a period in the past where in the MCU movies they couldn't use the word mutant because that was an X-Men thing, and now they can finally use it now. So I think that was a big sort of
That's when they kept
moment for
pushing
him.
for the idea of it's Inhumans now. We have Inhumans,
That's
and
right.
then
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no more X-Men. Mutants don't exist, and they got the rights back. Yeah, Inhumans are don't worry. Inhumans never happened.
Right, right, right.
It's always been mutants.
That's right. Exactly, exactly. Although they did bring back Black Bolt, even the same actor from the Inhumans TV show that nobody remembers in the Doctor Strange movie. Yeah.
That's such, like, because it's like I didn't watch the show, but that's like, as for an underdog, I'm like, I'm happy for that guy. That he's just like, you were in the one thing that bombed
Yeah.
completely, and you
Mhm.
get to be in a you just get to be brought back. Not the other people, but you get to be brought back. But
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah,
and that was like based off the reaction. It's not that people thought the characters were stupid; they just thought that the show didn't work. Because when
yeah,
Black Bolt showed
yeah.
up, in theaters, people were cheering.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And the Inhumans, and yeah, Black Bolt's the king of the Inhumans. That's another thing that comes from the Fantastic Four comics as well. So yeah, I mean they could incorporate that back in. But anyway, uh, back to this movie that we're talking about, right? Wakanda Forever.
Sorry, we just love stories so much. You might
We
call us
do.
mythophiles.
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 Yeah.
Yeah, I did not like the first Black Panther that much. I think M'Baku
Oh,
was like
really?
my favorite part. Um,
Hmm.
there were like interesting parts that just didn't stick in my head as like a I need to rewatch this story.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think the great thing about the first Black Panther movie was I think of all of the Marvel movies, it was the most sort of overtly like hero's journey sort of movie. Yeah, I mean, if you know about the Joseph Campbell hero's journey thing, it really followed that sort of model very closely, where it's like, yeah, this guy he's supposed to be king, but then he gets dethroned, and then he has to sort of like claw his way back up, and so it's a very
Panther
sort
claws
of
way back up.
that's right, yeah, and he actually has yeah vibranium claws,
Death and
yeah,
Rebirth and the
exactly, yeah,
Threshold
yeah, yeah.
Guardian and
Hmm.
that it's like I don't mind cliches at all. As
Oh
it's
no, yeah,
it's there's being a cliche and being a good story are not they aren't like mutually exclusive.
no, no, definitely not, no.
It's just bad stories tend to just not be creative with what they do.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't think the first one was bad or anything. I just didn't like it that much. So like I wasn't when they announced two, it's like, oh, I'll watch it. I just don't. I'm not like
Mhm.
finally the second one.
Okay. Well, yeah, fair enough. Well, yeah, yeah. No, I really like the first one. I mean, it's maybe not my favorite Marvel movie overall, but I think there's a case to be made that it is like sort of objectively the best Marvel movie, and maybe even like um, I mean, for people that like don't like Marvel or superhero movies, you can like show them Black Panther, and they're like, okay, well, yeah, that's good. It's
If
a good sort of standalone movie,
if
I
you
think.
remove like the foundation that the rest have, you
Right,
talk
right.
like on like because it's like that's the other thing remembering. It's like wow, Iron Man is like the most popular one. He had three movies and two of them weren't even well received, and he's still just like and he's like the best, the most
Well,
popular guy.
one of them wasn't well received, but
Was
I think
Iron Man
I
2 well
think
received?
I think no, no, yeah, 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 yeah. I think two was the dud, but I think one and three were both pretty well received. I mean, maybe one was sort of fell under the radar at the time because it wasn't the Marvel movies hadn't become big yet,
Mm.
but I think it was yeah.
Um,
But yeah,
yeah, I get because it's like if you don't know any of, which is like it's I always forget that like people like I wish like you could like just watch one of these things and not know like who they are.
right.
Um, maybe because yeah, they're like especially in Spider-Man, there's a lot of like you already know the story.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That really relies upon that. But yeah, I mean, I think Wakanda Forever is interesting because I mean, it definitely relies upon you knowing who Black Panther is, but all of these other characters who are really the main focus. I mean, even I, as somebody who's read tons of Marvel comics, most of these characters are unfamiliar to me because most of these characters, I think, are relatively new characters. Yeah, like I mean, Shuri and yeah, and Nakia, the character that Lupita Nyong'o plays. I mean, these are um, yeah, these are not especially old characters within the Marvel comic book universe, but yeah, so this is sort of really building upon um, what was already created in the first movie and sort of yeah going from there. I think, and so it's an interesting yeah again it's part of the challenge that they have of not having the Black Panther character, but still trying to do something with what they do have.
There's also the character of Riri Williams, who I did. That was around the point
Yeah.
where I stopped reading the comic books because I
Mm-hmm.
did not like that story at all. Um, but it's written by a very specific author who purposefully who like he'll come up with a character and he'll write them terribly, and then as soon as someone else takes over, the character starts getting better. Um,
So yeah you're talking about Brian Michael Bendis.
yeah, I that's what I.
Yeah,
He also created my favorite superhero, so I can't be that mean about it. But like
yeah,
I found he'll write a character and be like, "This is them. They do all these things," and then another writer comes like, "They can't do all this stuff, but they have limits," and people start adding like more restrictions on them. That was with Red Hulk
right,
where like he shows up, he beats up the Silver Surfer, and he does all this, and then people come and like, "That's not really what." Another person comes, "You can't do that." It's actually not cool if they can just beat everyone up. That's not really how you get tension in a story.
right.
Um, That's what
Yeah,
I mean.
yeah.
It is weird because I'm like seeing like a character who like existed for a year and now they're already in a movie and like we're gonna give him a show next too. And I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't.
Mm-hmm.
You still haven't adapted like
Right.
the other ones. Like you just did Namor.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy that Namor that they've already done. They already did Moon Knight and Kamala Khan before doing Namor. Yeah. But but yeah, yeah. So that's where we are. But so I guess getting into the movie itself. So I mean, it begins with Shuri basically trying to save the life of her brother, but she's not able to do so, and so basically Wakanda uh, is recovering from the fact that T'Challa has died, and and then there's a scene where they go to the UN meeting in Geneva, and basically the UN representatives want Wakanda to make vibranium available to the world because there's things that can be done with vibranium, but
And they were also like, and you said you would.
right.
Uh, I was surprised by how often people get called out because they're like,
Yeah.
because that's like the issue we were talking about in the Black Adam thing, which is like there's not much
Mm-hmm.
world building that happens in Marvel. It's because they're like, we're
Mm-hmm.
Wakanda's like, we're gonna share all our technology, and then they just don't. So in this one, they're like, yeah, you didn't do that. Like
Right.
everything's still the same. Like you didn't help out anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I guess they helped out repelling Thanos, uh,
I guess
but
I guess
but
that is a pretty big
but
contribution.
that was that happened within Wakanda. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
So their army showed up in it. I think everyone's army showed up in Endgame though.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then they showed up again somewhere in upstate New York. I mean, that's the weird thing is that yeah that final awesome battle that happens in Endgame. Yeah, I mean it like takes place on this like yeah it looks like this huge wasteland, but it's like no that's all somewhere up in New York, upstate New York because
I
it's
forgot that.
yeah yeah because it's right next to like where the Avengers compound is. Yeah, so it's like yeah so
Because
that has to be where it's taking place. Yeah, yeah.
visually it's like, oh, it's an alien planet or something.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I forgot
it
that.
looks totally yeah, yeah.
Oh, that is weird. That was just in New York.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Thanos. Oh, yeah, Thanos bombed it, so it just looked like a yeah.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So But yeah, so really sort of the kind of, I guess, inciting incident of this movie is that, yeah, the world is aware that vibranium exists, but Wakanda doesn't really want to share vibranium with the world, and so that leads to people starting to search for vibranium, starting to mine places where vibranium might exist, and it turns out that yeah, the oceans are where it might exist. Yeah.
The only time, like every now and then, I'll see people nitpicking something, and then I'll disagree with it. And this was because I saw a lot of I like nitpickers, but like
Yeah,
I saw a lot of
me
them say
too.
like,
Yeah,
because someone made a vibranium detecting machine, and they're like, how
right.
can they detect it if they don't have it? It's like, well, they had some. Like the U.S. military had some vibranium. Like it's not.
They must have had a very small sample of it. Yeah, then that's true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only time I've been like, you can ease up on the nitpicking because it's they had a whole shield full of it, like that the U.S. military owns that shield.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Captain America's shield is made partially of vibranium. Yeah, yeah. So
Well, if we're gonna, it's a vibranium adamantium alloy.
that's
Um,
right.
there's
Oh,
also
is it? Yeah, yeah. Is the other part adamantium specifically?
I thought that's why because like when he fights Wolverine, it still works. So he's like it's like the strongest alloy possible, and it's also very rare.
Okay. Well, yeah. That's yeah. In the comics, yeah. That's probably been established. Yeah, yeah.
Which they find some vibranium at the bottom of the ocean, which I was surprised by that people actually died in this. And then also in the comics, maybe starring Agent Venom, they discover it in Antarctic, and they just call it Antarctic vibranium, and it's able to like pierce through
Uh,
other vibranium. So there's like a
oh
scene of
wow.
like it gets to a point where like the UN soldiers are given Iron Man suits, and you just see them get just shot through. So look
Oh
forward to
wow.
look forward
That's
to that
crazy.
next one. But yeah, so like they're able to
Yeah,
detect out
yeah.
the ocean, and then it was
Hmm.
like a horror film for like a bit.
It was. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was kind of creepy. Yeah, because basically, yeah, there are these. Yeah, I mean, there are people living uh, under the sea, and they basically do this thing. It's like a siren song where yeah they're able to emit some sort of sound that basically hypnotizes people and makes people jump off boats.
Which is
Yep.
I was like, that's surprisingly dark that they have a suicide siren call.
Yeah,
And it's like, oh yeah, it's
yeah,
because remember sirens would do that to the Greeks, so it would make you they crash their boats into it.
right.
So it's like that's fun.
Hmm.
So that's what happened to him.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty intense. Yeah, and then that basically leads to yeah Namor going underwater and coming up in the water of Wakanda. He's basically able to sort of go through through the borders or the shields that the Wakandans ordinarily have by going underwater, and then he goes and he confronts the people of Wakanda and basically says, "Hey, um, leave us alone," and the people of Wakanda are like, "Well, yeah, we had nothing to do with that." Um, and in this scene, Namor introduces himself as Namor, and there's actually an interesting
Okay. I was wondering why you brought that up.
there's an interesting explanation for why his name his name is pronounced specifically Namor, which made me laugh actually made me chuckle when we were watching the movie. But yeah, um, so yeah, basically Namor or Namor um, once the Wakandans basically figure out, okay, well, yeah, you guys need to figure out who the hell you know created this machine.
Because he, yeah, I
Yeah,
he's like this is your fault. Like we didn't do anything. Like, no, but you told them about it.
Yeah.
Which
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
he's like this is like we've been undetected for centuries.
Right.
Um, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there
Yeah.
were
It's like,
oh yeah, it's just I did like that there was this like thing where it's like, oh, here's Wakanda that's like kind of debating and like going in and out of like, should we like spread out and like be public? And then you're then shown the society that was like full isolation. You see how that starts affecting them
right.
and how they're like terrified. And now it's like, oh, this is what will happen to you if you keep being in isolation, is you'll just be violently killing anyone that can like break your isolation. I like
Right.
so you
Yeah.
get like
Yeah.
two
It's, yeah. Yeah.
societies.
Yeah. It's an interesting perspective because, we see that the Wakandans don't want to share vibranium with the world, but from the perspective of Namor and his people, they've already done too much by even telling the world that vibranium exists. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, they've already, yeah, let the cat out of the bag too much with that. So that's an interesting perspective. And so, yeah, so basically, yeah, Shuri and Okoye go to uh, go to America. They basically track down this whiz kid who is at MIT, who has created the vibranium um, seeking machine, and that is Riri Williams or Ironheart, and yeah, so that's basically how she is introduced into the story, and yeah, and this was yeah, and an interesting sequence. I mean, it's interesting how they're able to introduce this new character into the world as well, and it's unclear what further I guess involvement she's going to have with things, but yeah, I mean the way that she got introduced was I think cool and made sense plot wise, and yeah.
Yeah, her introduction, I was like, that is very solid. Her
Hmm.
involvement after that, I'm like, I don't know if you're supposed to still be here.
Right.
And then it's like, she's like, I'm gonna start fighting. I was like, you were like, you're gonna start killing people. Like, I mean, that's you were just in school, and I was like, yeah, I'll fight in a war.
Right.
Which is like I guess that's a classic start for a fantasy story. Also,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's like,
Yeah.
wait,
Yeah. Just sort of a. Mhm.
I did like too that the military general Wakanda
Mhm.
when she found out that
Okoye. Yeah.
Wakoye, and she's like, they have vibranium too, like what do you? They're not Atlanteans anymore. Are they still Atlanteans?
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. The specific name of these people is okay. So yeah. 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 Namor is the king of Talokan.
Talokan. She
Yeah.
finds out, and she's like the military like lead person. She's like, they have vibranium too. What? Like we have to just do what they say because like Wakanda like did also live in this bubble where it's like, well, we have superior technology, so we don't really have to worry about anything. And then
Right.
as
Right.
soon
Right.
as it became like, oh, they can match us, that well, we've never
Yeah.
fought a war where we're gonna be even. And so like,
Hmm.
and then they don't handle themselves well at first either. I thought that was
No.
interesting that they
No.
do like lose like
Hmm.
kind of a
Hmm.
lot.
Oh yeah. 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 Quite decisively. Yeah. But yeah, and it's also interesting. Yeah, going back to the character of Ironheart, Riri Williams. Yeah, again, I don't know much about how she is portrayed in the comics, but as I understand it, she's like a protege of Tony Stark. I mean, yeah, because I mean she's basically like creating Iron Man type armor, but when we see her in this movie, I mean Tony Stark has already been dead for a while, so I mean so she doesn't have a sort of direct connection to him, but
I don't remember. I think he died in the comics in Civil War II. I think Captain Marvel just
okay.
killed him.
Oh,
And then
really?
Yeah, it was kind of like it wasn't really clear how he died, and I don't think I don't know if he did, but there was
Carol
like
Danvers, Captain
yeah,
Marvel killed him.
she like shot
Oh
him
wow.
with like a blast and he died.
Oh
And everyone's
wow.
like that, yeah. And then it's kind of like I think that's what the Armor Wars story is going to be because it became like all these people like, oh, there's like a
Uh-huh.
huge gap, and then he made an AI, and there have been like rumors that this is what they're going to do for the actor because there was an
Hmm.
AI that he made as a backup plan, and it guides Riri Williams. Doctor Doom also
Okay.
decides to fill in that gap because he has a change of heart after he became God and everything. So
Uh-huh.
he also is like, oh, I'll take up the mantle. So the AI is like, he tells Doctor Doom, I don't want you to do that. And then he guides Riri Williams, like, here's how to like do all this. Here's like my lab, kind of what he does for the new Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hmm. Okay, that's interesting.
But
All
yeah,
right.
now I think she like mentions that like someone I just wanted to do it, or I just wanted to make a suit.
Yeah, yeah, I guess yeah, in the cinematic universe she was just a fan of Tony Stark and she's yeah, she just has happened to be able to figure out how to make Iron Man like suits. So yeah.
Which used to be a huge deal, at least in the Iron Man
Right.
2 era. But like I think now everyone's like like that is cool, but sometimes people just have superpowers now, so
Yeah.
making a suit isn't that big of an advantage.
Right, right, right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, power sources and vibranium, like we alien generators fall from the sky sometimes, so we have those. And
Hmm.
she
Hmm.
does. I like that's it. I like bulky suits more. I don't like that he got to the point. It's like, oh, it does look like the comic books, but I don't like that he got to the point where it's like skin tight. Like I want it to look like a
Oh,
suit of
sure.
armor.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah. So yeah, anyway, yeah, there's a big fight between the Wakandans and the not Atlanteans,
Yeah, it's another place.
Talokans.
The
Uh,
Talokans.
yeah, which happens, yeah, right in again, you know, it's always great to remember where exactly these battles take place. So this battle between them takes place right in downtown Cambridge, Massachusetts, because that's where MIT is.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, I forgot about
so
that.
yeah, yeah, and so Shuri ends up being kidnapped by the Talokans, and that basically introduces the next sequence where she explores their underwater kingdom and basically learns more about Namor. Yeah, Shuri and Riri Williams are both captured by them. Yeah, because they initially want to actually kill Riri Williams because she's the one that created the vibranium detecting
Yeah,
machine.
that's their
Um,
whole goal is like to we're gonna kill the
right,
inventor of it, and then we're gonna go back to no one knowing who we are. You guys are at fault, and the Wakandans are trying to beat them to that race. And I did like that
right,
fight
right.
that they have over because like Riri
Hmm.
like I like that too, where she does like do like some suit stuff, but then it fails, and then she kind of just like gets knocked out because she like flew too
Right.
high and crashed. I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah.
yeah. I was like, okay, like it's not she's
Hmm.
not like immediately like doing like it's like maybe that's what she'll get like I want heroes to like start small and then like work their way up. So I like that
Sure.
like she gets like a moment and then like just knocks herself out, and then
Right,
the
right, right.
military general fights holds her own, and then they can regenerate in water, so
Hmm.
she can't beat them, gets and she loses,
Right, right.
and
Yeah.
that was I like that fight scene.
Yeah,
And like
yeah, yeah. It was a
also water
cool
grenades I
sequence.
thought were really cool.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that was a really interesting thing that, yeah, as far as I know, was an invention, yeah, for this movie specifically. Yeah, yeah, I never saw anything like that in the comics. Yeah, where yeah, the Talokans, yeah, they can just throw a grenade at something and it just explodes like a ton of water, and yeah, and that can be a really effective weapon.
Yeah, because it knocks everyone else back. Water like regenerates their powers and heals them or
Right.
something. So like it's like a very like
Hmm.
that's like kind of like that's really all they need. It's like that, and then they
Right.
can like just stab people.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Also, their control over sea animals, it was like this is actually creepy. It had
Hmm.
more of a sin. I mean, they were the antagonists. So it had more of a sinister feeling to it than you'd see in Aquaman.
Hmm. Hmm. Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
And then like there's
Yes.
the and then like the military. Oh, also M'Baku, he was like one of the highlights in the first one. He doesn't do
Oh
much
yeah.
in this one, but he's still like a highlight for
Yeah,
me.
he's not in it too much. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, he's a I like all of his scenes. I think he's a really funny character.
Oh
And
yeah,
he kind of
definitely. Yeah,
just like
yeah.
he just like says things to people in the movies.
Right. Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
and I was surprised she gets like called out the queen who she because she's like, oh, I failed you, but I'll go get her. And the queen's like, no, I'm taking out. You lost the princess, and that's
Right.
like the second to last member of the family. Also, remember when you betrayed us for the guy that took over, and then you
Yeah.
joined us? Remember
Right.
when you did that? She's like, I changed
Yeah.
sides back.
That hurt. That hurt. Yeah. Yeah. Um, but yeah, yeah. So that's all the sort of intrigue that's going on within Wakanda. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, Shuri has a sort of extended interaction with Namor and sort of learns about his background. And so yeah, it turns out, yeah, I'm not going to remember all the sort of specifics of the way that they changed his story for this, but basically, yeah, he was born to this sort of ancient indigenous people. Yeah, basically, the people that lived in Mexico, in the Mexico area before the Spanish even came in to colonize it. And yeah, and basically he took the sort of magic herb that gave him and eventually all of the other people the power to breathe underwater. And then he goes back up to the surface and sees that it's been taken over by the Spanish conquistadors, and so he gets ticked off by that, and so basically kills them all. And one of the Spanish soldiers refers to him as El Niño sin amor, the child without love. So sin amor,
And
namor.
that's why the name
So
pronunciation
that's
is
why,
different.
yeah, yeah, and that's even why, yeah. I mean,
So
again, and again, I've been calling him Namor or Namor, but the
it
actual
means no
name that,
love.
well, I mean, Sin Amor would be without love, and it just gets shortened into Namor. But
Because they've
the
seen
his
Namor.
yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Um,
That's what that deserves.
the the name the name that he's actually referred to by his own people is Kukulkan. Okay, so that's actually like his.
Risky name to give someone.
Why is
Cuckoo
that?
Khan.
Kukulkan. Yeah, yeah. Kukulkan. Yeah, crazy Khan. Yeah, right.
Is that wait? Does that mean that?
No, it
Oh,
means yeah. Um, it's something like the feathered serpent god. It's actually something that's based on actual uh, Mayan Mesoamerican
so
mythology.
how does that origin compare to the comics? Because like I think like for the movies to like incorporate
Yeah,
feathered serpent god, because again the fact that he has wings on his ankles, I think maybe it's
right.
explained thoroughly in the comics, but I'm like that's such a wild thing to have to adapt and like have to like have people
Oh
take
yeah.
seriously, and then making it to where
Well,
he's the
yeah, yeah.
feathered serpent god. I'm like that's perfect.
Right.
Is that what it
Oh yeah,
was?
yeah. Definitely, definitely. Well, no, no, it wasn't because yeah, I mean the thing about Namor is that he is one of the oldest Marvel characters. I mean, he's like as old, maybe even a little bit older than Captain America. So he dates back to like the 30s, uh, and back when things were much sort of cheesier, and the stories that sort of yeah, the origin stories were a little more kind of questionable in some ways. And so, I'm yeah, so I'm I mean I'm yeah, I'm okay with the movies sort of updating his origins and incorporating all this other stuff in there. But I think his original origin was just, yeah, he was the child of a, yeah, I think his father was human and his mother was Atlantean, and so the sort of combination of the two of them basically gave him sort of mutant power.
Hmm.
Yeah, so he was able to breathe both, yeah, air and water, and he somehow got super strength because he was, uh
That just happens.
yeah, because
Everyone gets.
he was a hybrid, yeah.
I liked just the little touches with that whole Atlantis. I don't know what the city's called. Atlantis scene,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
like it
yeah,
just shows them playing a game, and I really like little touches like that where it shows them like
yeah,
pushing like with water a ball through a hoop. I'm like, oh, that's what they do for fun. I like because they don't really do that for Wakanda. Like I don't like
right.
I got a lot of like world building for that place, and
Oh, definitely, yeah.
and also
Mhm.
it's like is Namor, is he because he's telling her this as far as to like convince her like just let us kill her. uh but it's also like, is he
Right.
just manipulating her, or how much of this is him being like a reasonable person, and then how much is it him being like, I need, this is the kind of things I think she would want to hear to like convince her. um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is always somewhat ambiguous, yeah, the extent to which, yeah, he is an actually trustworthy
but also
person.
like I thought that was a really good setup, like because he's like because it is just a cutaway to his exact origin, because he's telling her like, here's my origin story.
Right.
And it makes, because he's explaining to her why this place decided to be completely isolated, and why it's so
Hmm.
important that it stays isolated. Because like, these are the things I saw, these are my people, so like,
Right.
do you get it? This is why you can't let
Right.
this keep happening, because everything's going to
Hmm.
fall apart if you let this happen. So I thought it was a really
Right.
like fluid segment, water fluid segment.
There you go. Yeah. Well done. Well done.
No, I was really, what I really liked that this movie had a lot of like little moments
Hmm.
with characters that I was happy with.
Yeah.
People being
Yeah.
called, just people mentioning like, yeah, this was our, you did this. You mean you mean the people that elected a guy who burned down all of our Wakandan flowers, that
Hmm.
within a day, because of he won the fight, and now like we don't have access to any of those. Like they bring like I like that they bring up the fact that like, yeah, that was like a big deal. Like that really ruined
Right. Oh
a
yeah.
lot of things. And
Oh
you
yeah.
join their
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
side.
Yeah. They're still definitely dealing with the aftermath of that. Yeah. I mean, another big plot point is, yeah, Shuri is trying to synthesize, yeah, like an artificial form of the heart-shaped herb, yeah, because that was all um, destroyed by Killmonger, yeah, in the first movie, yeah. So
Which yeah, let's a little more into that when we'll talk about Killmonger again.
sure,
Um, but yeah, I liked all that setup. There's that CIA guy from the previous one. Um,
yeah, yeah,
he's
Everett
back just like
Ross, yeah.
going for a jog. He's like pretty much like on Wakandan's team. And I was
Hmm.
seeing people talk about how like he is part of the CIA,
Right,
which is an amazing organization that does not do wrong things. Um
not at all. Yeah,
and
and yeah, and again, yeah, I sort of lost track of this at a certain point, but yeah, I guess apparently within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the head of the CIA.
yeah. Is she
Yeah.
the head?
Well, she is his boss. Um,
Okay, because I know she's gonna be
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, yeah. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page. Yeah. So yeah, her character, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, she is the new director of the CIA. Yeah, that is her
okay.
role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah.
I don't know, because all I knew is like, well, she's evil Nick Fury. Um
Yeah, yeah.
and
That's accurate. Yeah.
there's kind of this ambiguity about it until now, where she,
Mhm.
because the other guy is like, if Vibranium gets in the wrong hands, there's going to be war, there's going to be chaos, and she's like, oh, we want that. And it's like, yeah, that's
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's definitely not what the CIA does. I just want that on
Right, right.
record that they made up that persona that ideal.
Yeah, no, this is totally fictionalized. Yeah, no, there's nothing like real life.
They
Yeah,
don't sow chaos in other lands for resource.
that's
That would be
right.
absurd.
That's right.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so like they actually show that's what the CIA does. I thought that was fun. Not fun,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was cool to see her character again because yeah, the last time that we saw her, she she actually introduced U.S. Agent
Yeah.
into the Marvel Cinematic Universe by actually literally saying, "What we need now is a U.S. Agent." Couldn't believe that that actually happened at the end of the yeah, the Falcon and Winter Soldier
Yeah.
series. Yeah,
Yeah. Because it's like, oh, he's gonna be that. How are they gonna set that up? You're gonna be US agent now. And
yeah, yeah,
I like that idea of like in Iron Man,
yeah.
Nick Fury shows up, he's like, you know what we need is Iron Man.
Right.
And you're gonna be Iron Man now.
Hmm.
He just shows
Yeah,
up at the
and
end of
then
every movie and drops
right,
their name.
right, and then when yeah, I think it was in the second Iron Man movie, which is not well remembered, but yeah, when Don Cheadle gets into the suit, Iron Man's like, "What do you think you are, a war machine?"
Like how many times they just do that? Like how often a guy will be like, check out, Doctor Doom over here, and he'll be like, yeah, that is who I am, and you will everyone's that's my name from now on.
That's
And
right.
it's like
That's right. Yeah.
someone in the background just being like, it's like a Spider-Man, and
Right.
then
There you go. Yeah.
I'm
So,
I'm interested in seeing that. It's gonna be called the Thunderbolts.
yeah. Hmm.
I'm interested in seeing
Thunderbolts.
that.
Yeah, this should be good.
That's also like they're doing a sub Avengers team within the Avengers team movies. So within the
Right.
movies that build up to a big team up, they're doing a sub thing that's building up to like a big thing. And like
Right.
so it's
Right.
like so they'll do like they do like when Falcon and Winter Soldier, like that sets up Sam to be Captain America. And then it sets up this guy to be the Captain America of this team. So
Right.
it's a lot
Hmm.
it's double the team building that's happening now.
Oh yeah. 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 No, there's still plenty of big plans for the MCU in the future. Amazingly. Um, but yeah. Before we get into this, yeah, the sort of second part of the movie, the spoilers. Did you want to read any comments or?
That's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in fact, I do because we get comments. Not only do we get comments, we read them on here.
We
And what?
do.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
This was in our the Time Machine Did It book
Yeah.
episode thing we did.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
says did it.
Hmm.
Let me pick a different one.
Did it? Question? Yeah.
This was in an old classic episode with the Dungeon Crawler Carl book that I told you you're gonna
Uh-huh.
have to read at some point. Um,
Okay.
by Stacy86. I don't play MMORPG games, never could get into them. I love
Hmm.
first person shooters instead, but these books are awesome. Also, the Ripple system Kyle Kiram made me chuckle. I've read a few different ones now. They're all really great, but this was my favorite series for the consistency and keeping me wanting more of these books always. Makes me frustrated that I can't play these games. I feel like I'm suffering with FOMO. I messed up the punctuation of that, but yeah, it's Dungeon Crawler Carl, if you don't know, it's a lit RPG, which is a
Uh-huh.
whole genre of books devoted to existing in a world where video game rules are like a thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So in Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's aliens make an announcement that says anyone who's inside a building right now
Uh-huh.
is going to die. So like every building in the world collapses.
Oh
And
wow.
then everyone outside gets a message that says if you can either live here or you can enter into a tournament to gain possession of this world. And then portals open up all the world, and then people can enter it, and you enter this tournament of like death games. And they justify it and they'll be like, oh, it's like AI systems, like in algorithms, but it's like these are boots of +2 strength. And
Hmm.
you put the boots on, you get stronger. and they'll explain. They say like, oh, they're really advanced, so it doesn't, it does it, it amplifies your musculature, but we're just going to tell you it does +2, like a video game.
Okay. Huh.
It's real. It's
Intriguing. Yeah.
a lot of books in that genre I do not like though. Dungeon Crawl Carl is one of the few that I'm like that was well executed. Uh,
I think probably the closest thing I've read to that was Ready Player One. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's pretty much that. It's a
yeah, yeah,
lit
okay,
RPG is basically just what if instead of like putting goggles on that
right,
get, and showed you all that, like they were just like you can see all that now, and
right, right.
the world just straight up operates under that logic.
Hmm.
And in fantasy, they'll just say it's you gained mystic knowledge, and now you can like see.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It would be a
Yeah.
good game for sure. It would also be a great TV show.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Well, yeah. In Ready Player One, there is a part where he actually has to like in the virtual reality, he has to play through the game Black Tiger, which was like a classic arcade game, sort of like sword and sorcery type game, and it was like, yeah, I mean that was one of many things where, yeah, I mean when they made the movie out of it, they were like, well, yeah, okay, we can't actually use all of this intellectual property, this specific intellectual property that was referenced in the book. You know, we have to change everything into other stuff. But yeah, so yeah.
Um, Also, just for that listener, if you like literary RPG, check out Brightblade. It's one of those things where I didn't actually like the story, but I love the setup so much. I just kept going through it because the setup is a perfect isekai. If you know what an isekai is, do you know what an isekai is? You
No.
specifically, Duncan?
Mm-mm.
It I don't like that genre either because usually it's like a guy will be walking down the street and he's just like in a fantasy world now and he just
Mm-hmm.
lives there and there's usually no explanation. And Brightblade is a book that like justifies all of that and explains that like the guy has like a magic curse like on him to like when he'll be walking down the street and he'll enter a world where like people are in danger and it's like a British bouncer type and he's like just this
Mm-hmm.
like bald British like bruiser guy and he'll like
Uh-huh.
try to like save elves and every time if he dies he wakes back up in the real world and they like the a lot of the plot is him trying to he thinks that he just blacks out sometimes he doesn't know what it is and then they explain all they justify a lot of fantasy and video game tropes like existing
Uh-huh.
in a really satisfying way and then the story just keeps happening and then I stop liking it. But the beginning is amazing.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
And now back to Wakanda
Okay,
again.
back to Wakanda Forever. All right.
Uh
Okay. Yeah, so basically, the rest of the movie, I think, after Shuri is down there with Namor, involves yeah, Lupita Nyong'o's character becomes incorporated into the plot. Nakia, basically, um, yeah, the Queen, Angela Bassett's character, she goes to get her help to retrieve Shuri from these people, and so yeah, Nakia, who's more of like this sort of spy, covert type person, she goes down to rescue Shuri, and that basically sort of spurs this war. Yeah, yeah,
they
Namor and
also
uh
they also kill some of the Atlanteans. I
that's
think
right. Yeah,
or maybe
yeah.
they mentioned that's like oh it's non-lethal, but they there was like a neat scene where like the Atlantean is the one that hesitates and then they get shot instead. And
Right.
then it's like, oh, they were more aggressive and so there was like back and forth as far as like who's doing like worse.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is the more honorable, yeah, uh, person, yeah, in their conduct. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, Nakia when she's rescuing Shuri, yeah, she ends up killing at least one pseudo Atlantean, whatever.
I'm not gonna
Yeah,
remember.
yeah. I'm just going to refer to them as Atlanteans, you know. Yeah. So, yeah. So yeah, and that basically spurs Namor to attack Wakanda with his people, which he does, and that um,
In a
leads to
surprisingly brutal action scene.
yeah, it's pretty rough, and it does really sort of show you the danger of fighting a waterborne enemy if they can just sort of like bring water with them wherever they attack. Yeah, and it's a
Yeah, and
yeah.
do
It's very
siren
very sort
calls
of inventive.
to make you jump into the water where you're
Yeah,
helpless. And it's like, oh,
that. Mhm.
it was also like, wow, Wakanda was not ready for anyone who had like any tricks. Like they were not
Mhm.
ready to actually have to defend themselves.
Right.
And it
Yeah,
was
yeah. No,
like,
it's mhm.
yeah, they would have lost if they kept going.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, because yeah, the very first Fantastic Four annual that came out back in the early '60s. Yeah, the big story of that one was Namor declaring war on the surface world and him actually yeah attacking like New York and everything with all of his Atlantean troops. So yeah, so this and so I feel like some of these sequences were maybe inspired by that a little bit,
Is that
but
the
yeah,
one
no,
where
the
New York gets like flooded and there's like a scene where like Spider-Man's like saving people and then J. Jonah Jameson like sees it and he find that's there's like like because I never knew what caused that flooding. It's just like a scene people
right.
show because J. Jonah sees it and he's kind of like, maybe he actually is a hero.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's from that because yeah, I'm not sure if Spider-Man was in this annual, but yeah, I mean, same sort of principle involved. Yeah. But yeah, and I mean, in this sequence, yeah, is way more yeah intense and yeah, really presents the danger of it more than that old comic book. As much as I love the old stuff, but
I like because Wakanda has those like flying jets that shoot like lasers and stuff. And you just see
mhm.
that Namor like air skates over and just like breaks them easily. And there's like, they
Oh
are
yeah,
severely outmatched.
oh yeah. No, I mean, Namor is really presented as yeah a huge threat. Yeah, because he's super strong. He can fly. He's just as good in water as he is in air, and so yeah, there's really no way to sort of compete against him. And so the this invasion of Wakanda, I mean, it has devastating consequences. I mean, one of the biggest consequences is that yeah, the Queen Angela Bassett's character is killed in this attack, and so basically Namor is like, okay, so bury your dead and mourn their losses, and
I'll be back in a week. Yeah, I'll be back in a
yeah,
week.
yeah,
And you better be
yeah,
on our
basically,
side.
yeah. Hmm.
If you're not on our side,
Yeah,
we're gonna
yeah.
come
So
back and beat you up again.
yeah, so this is basically yeah Namor's negotiation tactic. It's like yeah, okay, I've done this, deal with that, and so meet my demands, or else we're going to do more of that. And so this basically leads Shuri to um, basically take on the mantle of the Black Panther herself, and to figure out a way to combat Namor and the Atlanteans. And she basically figures out, well, yeah, I mean, if you can basically dehydrate him, and yeah, and this is yeah pretty similar to how it is in the comics. Yeah, it's basically Namor needs water for his superpowers. Yeah, so basically if you can yeah eliminate the water in his system, then you will drastically weaken him. Um,
That's also part of watching it being like if you're a hardcore Namor fan
mhm.
and you don't like the idea of him losing the fight, there's a lot of things that are like because it's like, well, he could have won a lot of times, and
Right,
then they still have to like cheat even after he's kind of like, oh, it's over now.
right,
Um,
right, right.
so it was like, oh, it's because they don't. It isn't just he gets overpowered. He gets like
Mhm.
tricked and overwhelmed, and like all of his every weakness he has is like exploited.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so this really, yeah, sort of leads into the main kind of moral conflict of this movie at this point, which is that Shuri is just like hell bent on getting revenge on Namor and on his people. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, is this really the way to go, or is the way peaceful negotiation? And this is sort of spurred on by one of the like I think coolest sort of like brief scenes, which is when Shuri takes the synthesized heart shaped herb, and she goes into the spirit realm, and she basically expects to see either T'Challa or her mother there, but instead she sees Killmonger, her cousin, and basically he's like, well, yeah, you know that deep down you have this bloodlust in you, and you know that my way is the way to actually get things done. It's not to just be peaceful and merciful.
And I do like that she's like, you did burn down all of our flowers, and he's like, I did what I had to do, which is like, again, you didn't have to do that at all, but like,
yeah, no, it's exactly, yeah.
there was like, because people talk, it's like, well, he had all these mothers. Again, he burned down like these like sacred religious things out of like spite and like power, hunger,
Right.
So he does get called out on it, but he's still just like, it needed to happen.
Right.
But I do like the thing too, because the heart-shaped herb is like the spiritual version of like the super soldier's theorem, which is like the physical thing. So like, because good makes great, all that. So like when Steve became like, and then like they mentioned that like there's like a process that's supposed to have become the Black Panther, and Shuri did not go through those processes. So like mentally and spiritually, she's not all like there. So she meets like the guy who's like, you're meeting me because you're not in tune with your, you're like conflicted and you're angry right now. And so that's why that's why her mother didn't like meet her in the spiritual realm, is because she's spiritually connecting with like the person who matches her like emotions.
Yeah. Good point. And yeah, so basically the final sequence of the movie is basically the Wakandans attacking Namor and his people again, and it basically leads to a sort of final showdown between Shuri and Namor, in which she almost kills him, but at the last minute decides to spare him, so that she chooses T'Challa's path rather than Killmonger's path, and so yeah, basically, the people of Wakanda and the people of Atlantis, pseudo Atlantis, can live in harmony together.
Which felt like a bit of a jump.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how with these movies, I mean, Marvel movies are, I mean, they have a wide enough scope and reach that they really can't take but so many risks in terms of like getting into moral gray areas. And I mean, there was a point towards the end of this movie where it really seemed like, okay, I mean, is Shuri gonna just kill Namor? I mean, there are a couple of, I mean, first off, Namor needs to, I mean, presumably he's going to be used in other things after this. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, that would cut off that possibility. But also, I mean, can Shuri really be taken to such a dark place that she actually kills this guy? And and when there was that turnaround, I was kind of like, okay, well, yeah, of course, she can't actually do that. We can't actually have, because I mean, despite I mean, the trailers sort of make things look a little ambiguous with who's the main character of this movie. But I mean, Shuri is really the focus of this movie.
That was one of those things too, where they showed like the claws, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's Riri," And they're like, they're like, you don't know who it's gonna be. And everyone's like, it's
Right,
gonna be
right.
Shuri, or there's no one else for it. And like Marvel kept being like, oh, who you don't? Where I think we're gonna surprise you. Like, there's
Hmm.
no one else. It's gonna be her.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. I
also
mean,
like that. Again, she loses the fight first.
right.
She gets like stabbed, which I was surprised by, and then
Yeah.
she does like a little trick. So it
Hmm.
was like she did get a power up. It didn't really
Right.
help that much.
Yeah.
And then it was using like the intellect is what let her get the victory.
Right. Right.
Because yeah.
Hmm.
I didn't care for that. The big like the army fight. I didn't really care about that.
Yeah. It was kind of one big fight sequence too many. Um, yeah. But yeah. 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 I mean, there were a couple of cool things in the final sequence, but yeah, it went on a bit. Yeah.
um because they show up like holding hands or something, like we're at peace now. Which I
Hmm.
guess if you're like a warrior tribe, they're both like warrior uh
Right.
nations. So I guess that makes sense for it to be like we settled it. We fought.
Right.
We're cool now.
Hmm.
Um, doesn't really address the vibranium issue, but like
It's true. Yeah.
and now
That's still
yeah, I
that's
guess
still left open. Yeah.
yeah. Um, is there? Oh, there's an end credit scene that it's like I guess a big deal, or I guess it will be in like 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, the end credit scene. I mean, I guess it was you know emotional on a certain level, but in terms of setting things up for future movies, it was uh, not really doing much, which is unusual for Marvel because yeah, usually they prefer to go in that direction. Yeah.
Let's explain to the folks what the end credit scene is.
Yeah. So the end credit scene is basically Fury going back to Haiti, I think, to visit Nakia, who is living there now, and Nakia introduces Shuri to a young boy, who it turns out is her son that she had with T'Challa, and the young boy has a French name, but he says, oh yeah, no, that's just my French name, but yeah, no, my real name is of course T'Challa, yeah, and so that's uh, that's basically just setting up that yes, there is T'Challa does have a son, who presumably will inherit his mantle someday.
Which is like you mean like in Black Panther 3, is he gonna be like it's gonna be about him? Because that's like even if it's about him as a teenager, that's 10 years away.
Yeah, no, yeah. This kid's like no more than maybe 6 or 7 years old in this clip. So yeah, it's going to be
I'm
a
like,
while.
you know what? It got me more interested because I'm like, how is that going to play into the third one? Like, are they just going to be like, this is him now. This is going to be the next one,
Right.
and it's a 6 year old Black Panther who gets a super herb.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's the movie.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the movie. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt like this movie was. I mean, it definitely felt much more substantial than I think most other movies in what is Phase 4
I
of the Marvel Cinematic
I
Universe.
think it
Yeah,
might be the only substantial one in Phase 4.
it may be. Yeah, yeah. And this yeah. So this movie is the last movie of Phase 4. The next movie is going to be the beginning of Phase 5. And I'm not really sure what these phases mean overall. I mean, I think this phase was supposed to sort of introduce um, the sort of multiverse aspect of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this movie, Wakanda Forever, is really the only one that really does not touch upon any multiverse type stuff at all. I
Yeah.
feel like
And it ends on that note too. So it's like this
right.
is more like an interlude phase. I don't know if this is like
Mhm.
It was like a lot
Yeah.
of movies that like usually, a lot of stories got ended,
Hmm.
except I guess
Right.
because like for Spider-Man, spoilers for the end of the Marvel Spider-Man is at the end. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, now he's at the point that Spider-Man is in most stories at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah. The end of the Spider-Man No Way Home movie. I mean, that was sort of like Brand New Day, right? That
no way
storyline was
home.
in.
Oh, you mean in the comic?
Yeah. From the comics. Yeah.
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 It was yeah, and then it was one moment in time, and that's when he sells his marriage to the devil to revive his
Right.
aunt. And the acronym
Yeah.
for that is omit because it was
Oh, was it one moment in time? Or was it one more day? Wasn't
there's
wasn't
brand
that
new
originally what it
day.
was?
I think
Yeah.
one more day is when they try to undo that
Oh,
undoing.
okay.
I
Oh, I see.
think
Yeah.
brand new day is when the big retconning of Spider-Man starts happening, where he starts
Yep.
selling his soul and doing all
Right.
these
Right. Right.
things just to get him back to like level one.
Uh-huh.
And it
Uh-huh.
was like it was a 3-part trilogy of undoing his entire storyline. And
Right.
then
Right.
and that's what they did in No Way Home. They're like, here's the end of
Okay.
the other two Spider-Man. And now,
Right.
at long last, this Spider-Man doesn't have a job. And he's
Right.
maybe poor. And maybe we'll go into
Right.
that. And now his
Right.
suit
Right.
is red and blue. And he
Hmm.
made it kind of.
Yeah.
And I just in
And
no way the
uh-huh.
scene in No Way Home of him like swinging through the snow, I'm like, I don't feel like this is warranted. I don't know if you like what am I supposed to, I don't get anything out of him being like, it's me. I'm a
It's
whole
me.
trilogy.
I have no friends. I have no aunt. It's just me. Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay. And that's the trilogy, folks. It's,
There you go. Yep.
it's I like Tobey Maguire, so like I watched the movie, but like it
Hmm.
felt really odd where like it's the
Hmm.
whole trilogy was never about him. It was about Iron Man. It was about Iron Man's legacy, and then it was about the other Spider-Man. And his final villain
Right.
isn't even his villain; it's another Spider-Man's villain. He's
Right.
the villain in the first one was an arms dealer who hated Tony Stark. In the second
Right.
one, it was an inventor who hated Tony Stark. And in the third one, it's
It's
another
true.
guy
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
hates
It
a
was
different
all.
Spider-Man who has a
That's
personal
right.
connection to another guy who he shares the
That's
same name.
interesting. Yeah. 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 Weird trilogy. Yeah.
I don't like on their own, they're pretty enjoyable, but then it's like, what was the point of that trilogy?
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because it was like when the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie came out. Yeah, a lot of people were saying, well, yeah, this is. I mean, that's like the best Spider-Man movie, and it's like, well, yeah, it might have been the best Spider-Man movie, and yet within the Marvel Cinematic Universe sequence of movies, it was a fairly forgettable movie.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
villains were always, and that's the villains were always the most interesting part in all of them. The
Yeah.
Vulture was like,
Oh
I
yeah.
thought that was an amazing way of adapting that character. I love
Oh
everything
yeah.
about doing
Definitely.
that. The
That
coat,
was cool.
everything, brilliant. But then it's like, but what is the point? Why is he here? Why is Spider-Man doing this? And
Right.
then he's like, by the way, he's been taken under a billionaire's wing and he's been set for life money wise. It's like, that's not that's not the cool part about the cool part is he was one of the first superheroes to have to worry about rent, you
It's
know?
true. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
And now he doesn't. And then
Hmm.
he fights people that are mad at someone else.
Right.
Not
Yeah.
this. This was Black Panther 2 was at the very least there were themes going on here involving like the core characters.
Yeah. No, there were
They
themes
were
and
all
yeah.
personally relevant to the story happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. To what extent should kingdoms be isolationist? Yeah. Yeah.
And Wakanda's in
Mhm.
Wakanda's in this limbo of like, we tried reaching out and look what happened, and maybe we should go back and be like, well, here's your dark reflection, your Black Mirror world.
Right.
where if you go back to this world of always being afraid, you're going to become the very thing that you would normally try to help other people again, all that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
Also, I guess
overall,
in Ant-Man
mhm.
2, he did that was that phase 4? Ant-Man 2?
Ant-Man was, I think that no, that was still part of phase three because Captain Marvel and the second Ant-Man movie were the ones that came out between um Infinity War and Endgame.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, yeah. Well, that's so overall, Black Panther
Yeah,
2, what are you thinking?
yeah. So overall, Black Panther 2, good movie. I mean, if you like the first Black Panther, you'll like this one. It's maybe not quite as good as the first one. I mean, obviously, um, yeah, not having Chadwick Boseman, affects things to a certain extent. I think they did a good job with honoring his memory and sort of doing a tribute to him. That was nice. And I mean, the movie's maybe a little long. Uh, it's yeah, it maybe goes on a bit too long towards the end with some of the sequences, but overall strong movie, strong debut of Namor, I think, and Ironheart. So yeah, two more interesting characters have been added to the MCU. So yeah, overall thumbs up.
Final thought for me also is this is the first time that the Black Panther does not fight someone with an artificial arm that we've seen. So our
Yeah,
introduction to him in Civil War was fighting Bucky, and then in his movie
right.
he's fighting Claw with an
Well, yeah,
artificial arm. So this is the first
yeah,
time.
yeah.
The guy has both his arms.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
That's all I thought. I don't know. Yeah, just wanted to point that out. Yeah, I can do a. I guess I mean I don't know if I liked it, but it was good.
Okay.
That's
Okay. That's a very that's a very Cody Decker review. Yeah.
I'll give it a. We're gonna. I'm gonna figure out. I'll give it a thumbs up.
Okay.
It's.
Yeah.
I was watching. I'm like, this is just. I'm not. This isn't for me. I don't. I don't.
Hmm.
I don't know Namor. That looks cool, and I can feel
Yeah.
in my heart that there is someone who likes Namor and he knows about them that this is doing a great service for, and it's not me.
Hmm.
That is a cool character
Right.
though.
Right.
Actually,
Yeah.
the thing I was just talking about how I wish I could see things without knowing about them. I guess this is what this feels like. Um,
Hmm.
so I guess it is like, oh, that guy looks cool. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just gonna start rambling if I keep trying to explain my thoughts on it. Oh, that was it.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
what are we gonna talk about next in the mythos
Mm.
files?
Yeah. Yeah. Next, we've got a great myth coming up about a doctor, Doctor Moreau,
And
and
where
an
does he live?
island.
I stepped over your bit. I'm sorry.
He lives on the island of Doctor Moreau. Isn't that a coincidence?
which, which already one of the first things I noticed is all the parodies of that. They get a very
Yep.
core basis of it wrong for how like
Hmm.
the big thing happens.
Right.
Like everyone
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
made up this different version of how he does this thing. And it's a much more disturbing thing he does.
Right. Yeah, 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 definitely. So yeah, yeah. So next time we will be reviewing specifically the book, The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells.
I'll check out the
Maybe if
movie.
we yeah, maybe if we have time, we'll check out the movie. There've been a couple of movies of it, but the specifically, yeah, the '90s movie with Marlon Brando as Dr. Moreau is supposed to be one of the worst movies ever made, and so it would be worth, yeah, maybe we can watch that and we'll compare it to the book a little bit. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, what's the outro?
All right. So yeah, keep watching the waters. Keep watching. Yeah, the skies for flying armor. Yeah.
For me, more.